Africa is not the problem. It is the solution. Africa is not an aid case, it is an investment case. The energy transition cannot take place without Africa. Now, these are the words of Banji Fehintola, who is Executive Director of Financial Services at the Africa Finance Corporation, who spoke to Arise business correspondent Rotus Oddiri at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Let's have a look.
All right, Arise News here at Davos 2025 with Mr. Banji Fehintola, Executive Director for Financial Services at the AFC, the Africa Finance Corporation. Congrats on your new role. You were just appointed to it about 6 months ago. You have a lot of oversight over a lot of divisions. Can you tell us about the capital mobilization and partnership division that you have oversight for?
Yeah, first, thank you for the congratulatory message. It feels a bit stale now, to be honest, because I've been on this job for about 6 months, and those 6 months feel quite long, given the kind of work that we have to do, right, in helping Africa. You're correct. Capital mobilization and partnership is one of the teams under the division that I lead at AFC. The Treasury is there, the capital markets team, the funding, financial institutions, advisory, etc. But the capital mobilization and partnership is an important part of what I do. And why is that important? Because we need to mobilize capital to help Africa to develop, right? AFC was set up to do that. That's really why we've been existing for the last 17, 18 years. And we need to grow. We need to have more impact on the continent. For us to do that, we need to mobilize capital, and we need to build partnerships across the entire world. So that's really what that team is set up to do. And the team has been doing a lot of work, as you would probably have noticed.
Fantastic. Now, what kind of conversations are you having with heads of state, representatives from the African continent about infrastructure finance while you're here in Davos?
I think a lot. I would think in summary 2 things. One, people need to realize that Africa is not a problem. Africa is indeed the solution, right, to a lot of the challenges that the world faces today. And I think in all the conversations we're having with global leaders, etc., we're making them realize that Africa is the solution. If you take energy transition as an example, there's no global energy transition without Africa. Most of the critical minerals that we need for the global energy transition sit in Africa. So there's no way we can talk about climate change, etc., without talking about the role that Africa will play in doing that. So I think one of the biggest conversation is around people changing the mindset. Africa is a solution, not a problem. And then secondly, I think the other point we're making to people is people need to realize that, Africa is not an aid case. We're an investment case. So people need to start seeing Africa as an investment destination. The investment opportunities are abundant. And, our job at AFC is to kind of expose people to the investment opportunities on the continent. AFC itself is a success story, and I think that that's really the kind of conversation that we're having here at Davos.
Now, as far as headwinds are concerned, one of the conversations that was being had, one of the sessions here was on emerging markets shocks. So what kind of shocks do you see on the African continent or emerging markets in general?
Generally, we all have to be ready for headwinds. I've seen a couple of those in my lifetime and in my career, so we have to prepare for that. But if I just look at the financial markets generally, the biggest issue right now is there's a transition in the U.S. President Trump was sworn in, just a few days ago. Even before he came in, we saw the ripple effects in financial markets. This time last year, we thought rates were going to be going down. In the U.S., the Fed actually did cut rates because we thought inflation was under control in the States. But now we're seeing that inflation is a bit more resilient, and there's conversation now around rates remaining higher for longer. And, the higher rates are, the more expensive it is in terms of dollar financing for emerging markets, for African issuers, African sovereigns. So that could be challenging. And, if the Trump administration also goes ahead with tariffs, that could be inflationary, which means that the Fed, unfortunately, may not be able to reduce rates as people thought. So interest burden, market access, those will be challenging. But I also still believe that African countries that do the right things, African issuers that do the right things will still be successful despite all the headwinds. But I think it's going to be a challenging year in the financial markets for many African issuers.
Okay, so based on that, can you give us any insights in any big projects or deals you're looking to sign while you're here?
A lot. AFC is busy. We are a $14 billion organization with a huge pipeline of investments across the continent. Some of the big ones, I think, making headline are things like the Lobito Corridor, which we are the lead developer for that project. That's a massive, massive project. It's a project that potentially could be, I would say the biggest piece of infrastructure play in Africa for a very long time. This is a project that runs across Angola, Zambia, DRC, potentially Tanzania, and it's we're the lead developers for it's 800 kilometers of rail, which if it goes all the way to Tanzania, essentially connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean. So imagine what that means for infrastructure, for tourism, for critical minerals, for agriculture. That's a massive, massive project that we're working on. Similarly, we're working on a project, called X-Links. X-Links is going to produce a lot of renewable energy in Morocco and through undersea cables, about 4,000 kilometers, pass that on to the US, to the UK, and supply potentially up to 8% of the UK's energy need. We're investing in that development about $14 million. So we're quite busy. I mean, there's a lot on our pipeline. We're raising money. We're looking for partners all over the world. We issued a hybrid bond last week, for people that know. And the hybrid bond essentially gives us equity recognition. It was $500 million. And on the back of that, we can raise more capital in order to finance all these big projects that I just talked about.
Fantastic. My final question for you, what is your outlook for 2025 for the African continent?
I would say cautious optimism. And I know that sounds cliche, but I've learned a lot in my career than to be too optimistic and disappointed. So maybe cautious optimism is the right word. I know the capital markets will be difficult, that much we know, but the opportunities in Africa still remain enormous. And there's almost no part of the world, the US, China, every part of the world, everybody's looking at Africa. And I believe that to me, gives us reason for optimism as a continent and as a people. And as Africans, we need to continue to make Africa a very good investment destination. And I'm pretty optimistic that if we do the reforms and we do the hard work, then Africa will actually have an excellent year in 2025.
Mr. Banji Fehintola, the Executive Director of Financial Services at the AFC, thank you for talking to Arise News here in Davos.
Thank you.